Ukraine tensions. Putin is getting ready to send a warning to the West with a devastating Satan-2 missile launch. There are more and more worries that Putin is getting ready to launch the Satan-2 nuclear missile as a scary warning to NATO. People think that Putin is gearing up for a disastrous nuclear missile launch to send a message to the West. The launch is said to have been planned so that it would happen at the same time as Russia's upcoming huge offensive, which will involve hundreds of thousands of soldiers. There are rumors that the Russian military, which has thousands of tanks, armored cars, and attack helicopters, is ready to attack Ukraine. Foreign policy says that the Kremlin is putting together 810 rocket launchers and 2,700 pieces of artillery for a new round of attacks. A Satan-2 missile is about 116 feet long and can carry 15 nuclear warheads at the same time. Even from 1,600 miles away, it can reach far enough to destroy the United Kingdom in just 6 minutes. With a range of 11,180 miles, the missile's destructive power is thought to be unmatched by anything in the West. Even so, it is thought that the launch will only be a test, because Putin has caused delays in the development and use of this scary weapon. The Russian government has warned that a test launch of a nuclear-capable strategic missile could happen between February 15 and February 25. The test launch is likely to happen at the Kura test range, and officials in outlying parts of Kamchatka have been told to get ready. On the Kamchatka Peninsula, the districts of Tygelsky, Karaginsky, and Ust-Kamchatsky have been labeled risk zones because missile debris could land there. Travel restrictions are in place for the people who live there. Experimental and testing operations are being done by the military in these areas, which are bigger than England. The Telegram channel Military Russia says that Putin could also test fire a Belava or Yars missile. It comes after Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky finished a tour of Europe to visit his most important allies. He came back with a lot of support, promises of more military help, and France's most prestigious Medal of Honor. The 27 leaders of the European Union met in Brussels to show their unwavering support for Ukraine. Russia is thought to be getting ready for a new offensive on February 24, which is the one-year anniversary of the war. With the help of French President Emmanuel Macron, who gave him the Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor, Zelensky has been trying to make sure that Europe will keep helping Ukraine. It's important that Russia doesn't win the war, especially since a think tank in the US said that Russian forces in Ukraine have taken the lead and started a new major offensive in the Luhansk region. When President Zelensky went to the European Parliament, lawmakers cheered, hooted, and applauded him. In his plenary speech, he insisted that Ukraine's fight against Russia was a fight for the freedom of all of Europe. A winning Ukraine will be a member of the European Union, Zelensky said to applause. He built his speech around the fact that Ukraine and the 27-nation bloc are both going to have to face Russia head-on. As long as we take care of the European way of life, Europe will always be and stay Europe, he said. He also said that Russia wants to destroy the way of life in Europe, but we won't let that happen. How to explain Russia's second big offensive and what Putin is betting on? Analysts say that the war's goals have changed, and that now it's not just about protecting Russia, but protecting Putin's Russia. I disagree. Even though Putin says so, it doesn't matter. The goals haven't changed. They are to bring the country back to the borders it had in 1991. This country is called Russia. It doesn't matter what they say about it. What Putin says doesn't matter. What counts is how he acts. I want to know what it means when someone says, Russia is losing the war. You know that Russia and we can have very different ideas about what it means to lose. We know what it meant for Nazi Germany to lose the war. American, Soviet, and British troops in Berlin, Hitler's suicide, and other events that led to the end of the Nazi state. What we think of as defeating Russia and what the Russians think of as defeating Russia are two very different things. If Russia loses these lands that it has occupied and claimed as its own, it would be a clear loss in your and my eyes. First, we still need to get to this point. If that happens, we won't be able to tell what the world looks like. All of these are pretty tough questions. Second, I don't know if Russia would call this a defeat. Maybe this will be seen as a win in Russia. We fought to keep all of our historic lands. Part of the land where people were supposed to be freed from Nazi slavery is now occupied by the Bandera country, which was helped by the whole West. The West also wanted to occupy the Belgorod, Kursk, Tyumen, and Yaroslavl oblasts, but we wouldn't let them. Now, we will put all of our forces together to get ready to free our territories, maybe through political means. But this needs quiet. Who makes sure that peace is kept? Vladimir Vladimirovich. Who? Putin for always. This means, of course, that Vladimir Vladimirovich can't leave Russia with his worries even after 2036. If not, things will go wrong. If not, he said, the enemy will take over both Belgorod and Kursk, just as they have already taken over our own Donetsk and Luhansk. Horrible. So don't be afraid. Even the fact that Russia had to temporarily give up what was obviously its land because of pressure from the whole West can be used to explain the loss of Crimea. Or, like the fact that Russia is being told that either nuclear strikes or a political solution to the Crimea problem are the right ways to solve the problem. They could also say, the smart Russian government has decided that everything needs to be solved politically. I don't think there's anything special about how they'll see it. You get it. A real defeat of the Kremlin vertical can only happen when the troops of some allied countries, there aren't any right now. The Ukrainian army is the only one, enter the hero city of Moscow. Everything else is just fighting over positions, because this regime is based on its power structure and not on the support of society. Many Ukrainians are making the same mistake that Belarusians did. They think that if everyone in Ukraine protested against Lukashenko, he would just disappear and run away. And, like the Russian government, the Belarusian government is based on the power vertical and the shared interests of the elites. If this power structure works, it doesn't matter how much land the occupiers lose in Ukraine. They might have their own ways of doing things inside, which I don't question at all. But so far, I haven't seen any of the things they need to get going. Russia's second big offensive has nothing to do with politics, it is a military matter. I don't know much about the military, so I can't say what this number of mobilized troops, 300,000 to 500,000, can do now that the military units near our borders a year ago couldn't. Still, there was an attack a year ago that no one saw coming until the last second, and we didn't really know where they could go. Now, the situation is very different because we've had more training and different military gear, among other things. I can't say for sure if this attack will happen or if it will just be a threat of an attack. I also don't know if the Russians will do anything to distract the enemy so they can work better in more important areas of the front. This has to do with the military. Russia is going to keep fighting, and Vladimir Putin is betting on a long war that will wear out Ukraine. This is a fact. We need to be ready for this war to go on, say, until the 2030s. At the start of the invasion, I said that it reminded me a lot of the conflict in Syria or the wars in Yugoslavia. At the time, everyone was suspicious, but things are slowly moving in the direction of a long-term conflict. And what will the conflict be? What kind of constant fighting over positions will start in some directions and won't stop? How will this affect any big offensives? We'll be able to answer this question in 2 or 3 years, when I would say the war looks like a 3-dimensional picture. But so far, not much time has gone by. I don't think anyone in Russia is telling the troops, do whatever you want, it doesn't matter how many resources you have. They have never done that, and they never will. A year ago, there were no, do whatever, instructions. Their political decisions were based on the idea that the Ukrainian people would be happy to meet the Russian occupiers, and the invaders' armed forces were told to form a formation that was supposed to go on parade. It was a political mistake, but this kind of thinking led to it. Now, you know that they don't do any analysis before making political decisions. Still, the military will be asked what tools they have to take over Kyiv, which has a hostile and disloyal population. This will be the question asked. You don't have to act like the Russians are complete idiots. There are, of course, stupid choices that come from bad judgment.